remember what it was, but it set me to thinking and reminiscing and going back to childhood. I don't know what it was. I started thinking about what my childhood was like. We didn't have dials on our telephones back then. You just picked up the phone and someone said, "Number, please." There was only 1,500 people in the town as I was growing up in it. And by the time that I had graduated from college from the very same town, there were 15,000. So there had been some growth there during the 1950s and 60s. But it was an idyllic time to live and to grow up. I felt like I was Opie in the Andy Griffith Show. It was that kind of town. You knew everyone. Everyone was related to someone you knew, or was a friend of someone you knew, or worked for or with someone that you knew. It was just that kind of town. People would come up to me, and I was riding a bicycle, and they would come up and say, "Are you Buck Dearmore's boy?" I'd say, "Yes," and they'd say, "Oh, okay." And it was okay to ride through their yard or whatever it might be because they knew who my father was. Life was like that. Here's where it all ties together. I started thinking about what a Saturday morning was like for me. Saturday morning, I would wake up in the morning. I had a flat top. We called it a burr haircut. You didn't have to do much to it at all whatsoever during the week. It was a low-maintenance haircut. My parents would give me $1. I would either ride my bike or walk downtown. It was only about 5 blocks to downtown. I would go into Slim's barbershop. I would wait, I would sit down, and Slim would give me a haircut with only no scissors, just a pair of cutters. Took him about 5 minutes, and it was over with. I would hand him 75 cents. I would hand him the $1. He'd give me back 25 cents. I'd walk across the street to the Bronco Theater. I'd go up there. I'd pay my 15 cents to get in. That's what it cost for a Saturday morning show. And I would go into there, and for a nickel, I'd buy a little small bag of popcorn. It wasn't anything outrageous. It wasn't like a bucket. It was just a little, you remember those little slim, small, red and white bags? And it said popcorn on the outside. And they would fill it up, hand it to me. I would go over to this machine and drop another nickel into the machine, and a cup would fall down, and sometimes it would actually fill up with Coke. Do you remember those cups that sometimes it would turn sideways and then before you could open the little door and fill it up? And so I'd make sure that it stood up correctly, and I'd get my Coke, and that was it. A little small one. Things weren't outrageously large back then. It was safe. A little small bag of popcorn, and that would last me through the whole movie. And then here's how the movie went. You go in and sit down in the seat, and the first thing that came up was the newsreel. The newsreel would come on, and the man would speak, and it was always the same voice, and he would tell you what was going on in Korea at the war, and he would tell you all these things, and that was the way we got most of the news. Many of you remember this. I see some head shaking every now and then. Then, after that, would come the cartoon. And then after the cartoon would come the serial. Then after the serial would come the movie. The serial was always some action-adventure thing. It was always little boy-oriented. It was either a cowboy, a gangster-type situation, or some kind of superhero. And they would go through this, and it would be a cliffhanger. There was always so many episodes to the serialized movie, and it would finish up with this cliffhanger at the very end. And it was only 15 minutes long. But it was amazing how much tension you could build in your body watching this happen. You'd always come back the next week to see if he actually made it through it. Of course, he always did. But serial got me to thinking about the way we do life. We do life, all of us, to some degree. And maybe we've been trained. Maybe this Pavlovian thing. Maybe our minds have been trained to experience life this way. Taking life and sort of building it up into some kind of dramatic moment. How is it going to turn out, this way or that? Oh, you have to come back next week to find out. You have to wake up the next morning to see how it is. And that's kind of the way we do life, as though it's a serial. That got me to thinking about the synonym there, or not synonym, but the what's the word? Yeah, homonym for it. Thank you. Yeah, it escaped me for a moment there. The homonym for cereal, which is cereal, like you eat a bowl of cereal. So I decided, I really don't know a lot about the Kellogg Company or about the Post Company. I think I'll look it up on the internet. How wonderful. You don't have to go to the library. You can just open up this thing right in front of you, type something in, and everything you ever wanted to know and more is available to you. And some of it's actually true. Some of it's true. So I looked it up. Kellogg, Wikipedia. It comes up. Here's what I found out about the Kellogg's. The Kellogg's were two brothers. They were actually people, Kellogg's. Many of you already know this. One was named George Harvey Kellogg, G.H. Kellogg. He was a doctor. He had a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan. And the sanitarium was not for people that were, it's not like that a mental sanitarium. It was a place where people could go for healing. The other one was named Will Keith Kellogg, his brother, and he pretty much handled the business end of the sanitarium. People would come there to get well from what they considered they were having, which was a nervous breakdown oftentimes. These people, these two brothers, and all of their followers, were followers of a man named Graham. Mr. Graham invented graham crackers. These people were all Seventh-day Adventists, and they all subscribed and thought the world should be on a diet of fruit and nuts and grains only. Vegetarians, vegans, we would call them now. So they were coming up with different ways and different packaging for fruit and nuts and grains. One day, they left a big bunch of cereal going. It was more like a mush. They were stirring this up. It was powdered wheat that they had milled wheat, and it was left too long, and it went stale, sort of stale, is what the Wikipedia says it happened to it. They didn't know what to do with it, so they decided, well, being thrifty as well, we've got to save this in some way. So they decided they would take all of the moisture out of it and see if it could be recovered. So I don't know how they did this, but they put it through some kind of a rolling machine and squeezed all the moisture out. And when they did, it fell out not in big long sheets like they thought it would, but in little flakes, little pieces. So they said, well, now we got to do something with these. So they put them in the oven and they roasted them a little bit. And they invented wheat flakes. They decided that this was very nice, except the price of wheat was very high back at this particular time. So they didn't want to pursue wheat any longer, and they thought, this is a great idea. Let's do this with corn, which was very inexpensive at the time. They created the first cereal as we know it, Corn Flakes. And they called it, you would think, Kellogg's Corn Flakes. That's what it is now. But they called it Battle Creek Corn Flakes. And they started the Battle Creek Corn Flake Company. There was a man who was in the sanitarium at the time, and he decided, I think these guys are onto something. When I get well and I go home, I'm going to start my own company like this. His name was C.W. Post. Isn't that amazing? They're all tied in with one another, and they were all Seventh-day Adventist vegetarians. And that's how we got that. This went along for quite some time, and then one of the brothers, the younger brother, Will Keith Kellogg, decided that he would make this more popular to the masses of people. And he added a little bit of sugar to it. And when he did, his brother split with him. Because the understanding and that they had in this sanitarium is that spicy foods and sugary foods, sweet foods, caused the passions to rise in people, leading to nervous breakdown. So their whole idea was they were developing a diet that would keep people calm, happy, content, bland, boring, to some degree. Okay, so that's how that all got started, and then the two brothers split up. So WK, as they called him, WK Kellogg, founded this company, and he took his own name on it, and no longer was he part of the Battle Creek Cornflake Company. Oh, by the way, they weren't called cornflakes at first. They were called grainomes. Grainomes, they called them. So, that's what they did. Now, he started calling them cornflakes, and he changed that, and by the time the company had started building and being successful in the United States, he branched out. He branched out into Canada first, then to England, then as far away as New Zealand and Australia. And he invented a new product along the way because he was looking for something that was gluten-free. So he started using rice, and he added a little bit of sugar to this rice. And that's all that's in it. And when it all fell out of the machine, rather than being in a flake form, it fell out into these little kernel-looking forms. And when they cooked those up, they became what they call in this country Rice Krispies. And in every other part of the world, they're called rice bubbles. Rice bubbles. One of the things that is really strange about these rice bubbles is that if there is a sharp temperature change for them, they implode. And as they do, they let go of energy. You start hearing this implosion. And that's what you hear is the snap. At first, they only had a snap to it. And in 1927, when they marketed these to the rest of the United States, they called them Rice Krispies in this country, and their spokesperson on their boxes was a little elf, a gnome. Remember, they called them the grain gnomes? A little gnome, an elf, and his name was Snap. Snap didn't like being alone, evidently, and the artist started drawing Snap along with another one called Crackle. Snap and Crackle. And somebody said, we need the third one, Pop. They wear hats, and these hats that they wear are very important when you look at them. One of them wears a drum major's hat. One of them wears the hat of a chef, and the other one wears a little cap with red and white stripes on it. Snap wears the chef's hat. Crackle wears the little hat with the ball on the end of it, that little winter cap. And Pop, the last one, wears the hat of a drum major. The whole idea of this is all about health, well-being, and fun. Snap, crackle, and pop. So I started thinking about that in our own lives. What is it that's like our own lives? We're like a bowl of Rice Krispies in a lot of ways. We're laying there just with all this potential within us, just waiting. Every one of us. Potentially something is going to happen, or could happen, or it won't happen. I was just talking to somebody this week, and this person told me, I'm doing my very best. I keep using these principles, and I keep saying to myself that that things are going to get better. I'm working on this all the time, but I'm feeling depleted. I'm feeling like I just can't make this work. All these principles that we talk about. I'm just not really feeling happy any longer. I'm feeling depleted. Nothing's going anywhere. You ever felt like that? Wow, I have. I have felt like, geez, I know Unity backwards and forwards. I say my affirmations. I say my denials. I read my daily word. I keep myself in a positive frame of mind, and I'm just laying there. Like the old song says, too poop to pop. And I ain't lying. Too poop to pop, just sitting here frying. And that's, do you ever remember that? Anybody ever heard that song before? Dating myself. Okay. So, here we are. We're this bowl. And what I told her is you're trying to do it all yourself. You're trying to do it all yourself. I'm not blaming you. I'm just telling you. From my own experience, you're trying to do it all yourself. With your mental and your emotional natures. You're trying to do it all yourself. Your emotional nature isn't cooperating because you feel like you're teaching a pig to sing. You know that old phrase? You can't teach a pig to sing. It just frustrates you and the pig never gets it. It's the same kind of thing. You just can't make it go forward anymore. You're not moving. Nothing's moving. Why? Because you need the inpouring of Spirit. When we let it go and allow the inpouring of Spirit to come back into all that is there in our bowl, on our plate, it starts moving again. It starts to snap, crackle, and pop. Life changes. So God is like the milk, the loving milk of Spirit poured into our bowl to give us that energy, that enthusiasm, that change that it takes for us to start seeing things differently, feeling things differently, and doing things differently. Snap, crackle, and pop. You can hear it, you can feel it, you can see it, and other people can hear it, feel it, and see it when it's present in your life. You know, I woke up today, this isn't any different today than it was yesterday or the day before. It's a day. It is a day that God has made. But I was different. I felt enthused. I felt excited. And I feel very expectant about life. Life has something wonderful in store if I'll just do the footwork it takes to make it happen. So I encourage, an old word, I adjure each one of you to go out into your lives. Take your bowl of happiness, your bowl of possibility. Take it and allow yourself to be filled with the milk of Spirit. And see if you don't snap, crackle, and pop too.